Hi, we're team number 5, and we're going to talk about gamification. The order we're going to start speaking is going to be first me, Karima Arbizu, then JB Arenas, Sofía Hernandez, and Carolina Vázquez. Okay. So to start, I am going to explain what gamification actually means. According to Christopoulos and Mistakidis, gamification is basically when we take elements from games, such as rewards, progress tracking, or feedback, and use them in a learning environment. The idea is to make students feel more motivated and engaged, kind of like how games keep you hooked. From an educational perspective, this approach connects with theories like connectivism and motivation theory. This means that students aren't just listening passively, they're participating, making decisions, and collaborating with the others. The philosophy behind gamification is that learning should feel more active, meaningful, and even enjoyable. So instead of just studying because we have to, the structure of the task motivates students to actually want to participate. Okay. Now, talking about the background of the approach, gamification is actually pretty recent. The term gamification was first coined in 2008 by Shirky and Terrill, and this is mentioned by Christopoulos and Mistakidis. And they explain that the word comes from the verb gamify, which was originally used by Richard Battle in early virtual game environments. But the approach didn't become popular until around 2010, when ideas from the gaming industry started influencing education and professional training. So the concept is new, but the reason it spread so quickly is because technology and digital tools were growing at the same time. That's when educators noticed that the same game-like elements that keep people engaged in video games could also help students to stay motivated in class. Okay, the structure of the approach. For the structure of the approach, Christopoulos and Mistakidis explain that gamification works through things like reward systems, and game mechanics. And these mechanics can include point-based grading systems, leaderboards, game-based platforms that simulate real-life situations, and others. The idea is that these elements encourage students to keep participating because they can see their progress or compare their achievements with the rest of the students. And honestly, this kind reminded me of something I experienced like last year when I went to Toronto in one of my English classes. The teacher made us practice speaking through a game called Werewolves, where you basically have to figure it out who the wolves are in the group. And everyone participates by discussing or defending themselves and making arguments. So nobody felt like we were studying because we were speaking nonstop and actually getting better. That's exactly what gamification aims for, like learning through interaction, motivation, and a bit of friendly challenge.
My name is Marisol Arenas, and I will continue with the next part of the presentation, and I will be talking about the main advocates of gamification, their theoretical contributions, and also the main references that support them and their ideas about this approach. The first advocate that I will be speaking about is Carl M. Kapp, and he is a researcher in learning design, and he's also a professor of instructional technology. And like I've mentioned, he's a researcher in several topics like learning design, motivation, and also educational technology. And he is regarded as one of the foundational figures of gamification in the educational context. And he was also the one that gave the first systematic definition of gamification for instruction in an educational context. And he also clarified the differences that exist between gamification versus game-based learning because they are different. And he also emphasized the motivational design through game elements in the classroom. And what are some of his perspectives? He has stated that learning improves through clear goals, rules, feedback, challenge, storytelling, and emotional engagement. And for him, good gamification in classroom must align with the cognitive and behavioral learning principles. He also advocates for designing meaningful experiences in classrooms and not simply adding points or badges to the students that participate. The second advocate I will be talking about is called Heyo Reinders, and he is a professor of the branch of applied linguistics, and he is also an specialist in SLA, which means second language acquisition and learner autonomy, gaming, and also in educational technology like the previous advocate. And he is one of the first linguists that studied digital games in language learning, which is like very specific because he is specializing in digital games. And throughout his investigations, he also delved into how gameplay increases authentic communication, motivation, willingness to take risks from the students, and also WTC, which is the willingness to communicate. And some of his perspectives are that games create low anxiety and also immersive environments where the learners can experiment freely by themselves and with each other. And he also shows that game worlds means like that digital or fictional environments where the players, in this case the students, interact. And in game worlds there are rules, there are goals, characters, and even storylines. And he shows that game worlds can promote a spontaneous L2 use and increase participation. And L2 means second language. Gamification, according to him, must also align with the second language acquisition principles such as interaction, meaningful communication, task-based learning, and self-directed learning. The last and third advocate that I will be speaking about is called Jonathan Reinhardt, and he is a professor of applied linguistics like Heyo Reinders, and he also researches in several topics like digital literacies, second language acquisition, pedagogy, and gaming. And his perspectives are that gamification should not only use surface game elements. Instead, it must like support deep pedagogical goals such as communication, collaboration, digital literacy, and also identity. And for him, games create social, like complex social environments that are ideal for language use, in this case in classrooms. And he also developed the concept of gameful second language teaching. And what does gameful language teaching mean? According to his ideas, it means that we can design language lessons to have game-like qualities, even if we are not really using or like involving a real game. And he also integrates insights from, for example, the sociocultural theory or the agency and identity theories. And he also emphasizes that digital games, in this case, should promote things like authenticity, learner agency, identity, and identity exploration. And now I will be talking about the theoretical contributions that each of these three authors made for gamification. And Caps, he will be the first advocate contribution that I will be talking about. And his key contributions are that gamification as the use of game mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics to enhance motivation. And he also clarified the difference between serious games, and game-based learning because these three are different from each other, despite the similarities. And he also defined the essential learning elements such as rules, goals, the feedback, challenge, reward, explorations, and narrative. And he also emphasizes that learner engagement and emotional involvement are very important characteristics of this approach. And he also introduced player types, which we know as achiever, explorer, socializer, and killer. And player types, according to him, They are categories that help us understand how different students engage in these type of gamified activities. And he also shows how game systems support not only cognitive learning, but also behavioral learning. And now I will proceed with Reinder's theoretical contributions. And his key contributions are that gameplay significantly increases the WTC, which is the willingness to communicate in a second language. He also has stated that game environments, like previously mentioned, reduces anxiety and promotes risk-taking among the students. And he also supports the autonomy through choice and self-direction. And for game environments create authentic communicative need. And also, in this case, digital context support meaning focused interaction in classrooms. And for him, games encourage spontaneous production, not simply like a scripted or planned output. And gamification can shape communicative behavior and motivation, which is like an idea we see among these three advocates. And the last author's theoretical contributions are Reinhardt's. And his key contributions are that he has defined gamefulness. And by gamefulness, he refers like to the designing of learning experiences that feel like a game, like applying the qualities of games to make learning more motivating and meaningful to the students. And he defines gamefulness as a learning condition that is based on several aspects like meaningful choice, challenge, identity, narrative, and co-construction. And for him, he argues that games help learners develop digital communication skills, pragmatic competence, and also intercultural awareness. And lastly, he emphasizes that games provide complex social settings that are ideal for language development. And the last subtopic that I will be talking about are the main references, which are the works that these authors worked on to support their contributions and ideas. And the first one is by Carl M. Kapp, which is called the gamification of learning and instruction, and it was published in 2012. And shortly, like this book explains the foundations of gamification for education, and it also includes definitions for concepts like game mechanics, motivation, feedback, narrative, and also how to actually design instructional experiences using elements known from games. And the second reference is by Reinders, and in this case, it's an article that he wrote along with another author that his last name is Watana, and they published it in 2014. And this article presents mostly empirical evidence that shows that gameplay increases the learner's willingness to communicate, in this case in English, mainly because games lower anxiety and create authentic communicative situations in classrooms. And the third reference that I will mention briefly is that of Reinhardt's, which was published in 2018, and it's titled Gameful Second and Foreign Language Teaching and Learning. And this is a book, not an article like Reinders. And in this book, he introduces the concept of gameful pedagogy. And he explains how games support second language acquisition through agency, interaction, challenge, identity, and digital literacy. Sorry. And these three works are the ones that provide the main theoretical and empirical support for gamification within language teaching, which we will be continued to reference along the presentation.
Okay, my name is Sofia Hernandez, and I'm going to talk about the successful educational context and a Mexican context as well. So first, in a study in Russia by Kovalenko and Skorbotsova in 2022, it was found that the usage of games by teachers, such as the following: board didactic games, electronic didactic games, multiplayer cooperation electronic games, and hidden object games with a non-linear plot increase students' vocabulary, motivation, and socialization within a group. Most of the games in here were all online, so we can find out that not only you can apply the gamification with physical games, but also with online ones. In another study for the Mexican context conducted by Hernandez Rodriguez de Santana in 2023 in a private university in Guadalajara, Mexico, students completed activities and got rewarded with points and badges for it. Basically, the gamification main point. And throughout the course, they show a strong interest as it offers a fresh, creative approach, and as a result, also got good grades in the TOEIC exam. Some of the activities were like design a creative business card, do market research, develop advertisements for a new brand of snacks, participate in role-play scenarios, and do online activities. Okay, for the lesson plan, there is none officially registered, but in a study made by Torres Rodriguez in 2023, there is a preference for the following sequence in order. The warm-up, instruction, and model, guided practice, less guided activities, and independent practice to finish with an evaluation and reflection of students at the end.
Okay, so now my name is Carolina Vasquez, and we're going to talk about the task example. For this task example, we created a game that is called Last One Standing, and we decided that it was going to be the present simple topic. So for this game, I think we decided that fits the approach of gamification. Basically, students will have to answer 10 questions about the present simple. And at the end, once they finish the whole game, they have to see how many answers they got correct. And according to the like questions they got correct, they get like a reward at the end. So for this game, we decided that it was going to be the best for the approach because this can engage and motivate students, and this can also lead to a meaningful learning environment, which can cause like a better development of the students at the end of the lesson. Okay, so now we have the conclusion. This is like the last part. So we thought and we say that gamification can be very beneficial for students because it turns learning into like an interactive and fun experience. It also encourages students to challenge themselves to achieve their learning goal. Also, we can say that this approach can promote teamwork, and it can also help students develop their communication skills, because if the teacher decides to put a game that it's in teams, then students can be more open and talk a little bit more. And furthermore, gamifications, it helps to show real-time feedback, which can show students where they did great and in what aspects can they improve. And finally, we can say that this approach can help students to gain confidence and pride through rewards like budgets, points, and maybe some certification that can be given at the end of the game. So that will be all for us. Thank you so much.